1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the first order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Reactions. We are going to have a great discussion tonight. It is going to be awesome. So grab some spice creams and a blue milk, and let's get this party going. My name is Aaron Harris, and joining me as always, he is, let's see, which one do you want to be? Do you want to be May or Osha? Let's see.
I want to be Kalnaka.
Okay, there you go. You could be you would be Kalnaka. Kalnaka to my Yoda. Size wise when it comes to it. My partner in crime, David Motters. David, brother, how you doing?
Oh man, doing awesome. Ready to react, and really thankful, really pumped that we have one of our really good friends on, and we're just thankful that he was able to jump on with us tonight. So I'm more than ready to react.
Oh, absolutely. We are thrilled to have a longtime friend of the show, friend of ours personally, that it has been way too long since we've had the privilege to just catch up and chit chat, and no time like the present. So welcome to Star Wars Reactions, the return of Jason Brame. Jason, what's up, man?
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. I feel so loved. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, we do love you, my friend. It has just been we're all busy men in our everyday lives, and we get things get us pulled away, but we always come back, and it's just like we've never left.
That's the sign of good friendship.
Exactly. So we are going to be discussing the third installment, the third chapter of The Acolyte tonight. This episode was entitled Destiny. It was released June 11th, 2024, directed by,
You want help?
Take it, David.
Well, I'm always helping you. You know, I always back you up on any of these words. I've never heard of this person before, but it's Kogonada.
Yeah. Directed by Kay. What David said. Written by Jasmine Flournoy and Eileen Shim. Of course, this episode, unique episode, as it was a flashback episode set 16 years prior to the previous two episodes, where we see young Osha and May's past unfold on the world of Brindok. The twin daughters of Mother Anasaya, played by Jodie Turner-Smith, lives among a coven of witches, training to one day lead their community. But on the day of the sacred ascension ceremony, a group of Jedi arrive at the witch fortress. Master Indara, her Padawan Torben, the Wookiee Master Kalnaka, and Jedi Knight Sol. When the visitors ask to test the twins' force abilities and their potential to train as Jedi, the witches tell Osha and May to fail the test intentionally. But Osha's dreams of life beyond her coven win out. Answering truthfully, Osha alone passes the test, winning an invitation to join the Jedi Order on Coruscant. But furious by her betrayal and fear of losing her sister, May locks Osha in the bedchamber, where she starts a fire that quickly consumes everything they know and love.
Dun, dun, dun.
End scene. Just kidding. So let's jump right into our initial reactions, because there's a lot to unpack in this episode. David, brother, kick us off. What were your initial reactions when you saw Destiny for the first time?
Yeah. No, I'll start it off, before you and Jason jump in. This episode really surprised me. I felt like it started off a little slowly, but then, oh my goodness, it covered a number of very deep, controversial and interesting subjects within the Star Wars galaxy. One of them is, of course, the taking of children. I put quote unquote the taking of children to be trained as Jedi. Mother Anastasia, really, in talking about destiny, brings up free will versus determinism. I've talked about that before in some psychology corners. We can touch on that a little bit. There's this, massively deep issue of power, right? There's parenting, and disagreements between the two parents on how to raise their daughters. And then also, something that I've really dealt with quite a bit, too much in my office, is how family members, in this case the parents and the siblings, don't always get along or agree. Also, and I'm of course really curious to see what you and Jason have to say about this, but Leslie Headland, the showrunner for this whole thing, introduces another mystery when we hear its mother Coral say that in the creation of the twins, it wouldn't be good if the Jedi learned how they were created. So now I'm like, ooh, okay, what's going on there? And so again, all kinds of incredible subjects to discuss. We won't have enough time to cover them all. But look, I said it after the first 2 episodes. Now we're 3 episodes in, and I'm in for the whole 8 episodes. I'm in for the ride, and really excited to see where this goes.
Very good. Very good. Jason, how about you, my friend? What were your first reactions to Destiny?
Yeah, you guys know me as very much a contextualist when it comes to Star Wars, right? I've always, every time I'm absorbing a piece of Star Wars content, I am always very intrigued by the connections that it's trying to make across the universe, especially with all the work they're doing in the Disney Plus shows. So for them to really, I thought it was a little too early for a flashback episode, but I know a lot of these Disney Plus shows tend to go that route. We get the the Star Wars model, right? We start in the middle of the story, we go back to the beginning, get some backstory, and then we conclude it towards the end. But they've been weaving these mysteries throughout the first 2 episodes. Like, they led us to believe that between Osha and May, like, were they one person, were they 2? And now that we know they're 2, and now we know they're force sensitive and they're connected, this is it all tying into some of the the mysteries and concerns we had about how the sequel trilogy was handled with the force and the relationship between 2 people. So I think they're really trying to explore that. And then we go into his flashback just to find out that both these 2 were raised in with like force witches, right? And it really echoes the rhymes of the witches of Dathomir, and going down that path. There's a fine line in new Star Wars content, especially amongst the fans, of what is just given to us because we are fans of the show and we know we're going to enjoy it, and then what is an actual intentional rhyme to what is going on in Star Wars and to continue the world building. So things that were questions or concerns from storytelling standpoint make a lot more sense, and I think a lot of this episode is doing that. It did it for me. Even hinting at the conception of children through the Force, hinting in this case that perhaps it was intentional, unlike Anakin's birth, which is always considered a mystery. So just the depth that they are building to the entirety of the saga is great. And then just to find the spot, there's this sweet spot here especially with this episode of the transition period between the Old Republic and the feature films that we are all well aware of, right? The prequels and all that stuff. It's almost like the stuff they're doing during the Clone Wars and building the connect, and every era between the films, they're trying to fill that content and build those bridges for us. So I'm so excited about this whole series, just the visuals of it. I can't get enough of it, honestly.
Good. Very good. Yeah. For me, I agree with both of y'all. Both of y'all had great points. For me, David, like you, I felt it started off a little slow, but it needed to be slow because there was a lot of story to be told in this 44-minute episode that they did. And it was very, and and like you, Jason, I was surprised we got the flashback this soon. But by the end of it, I was sitting there going, there's more to this story. What we just saw in this flashback is only, I got a feeling we only saw part of what actually happened. And I'll delve into that, my thoughts on that here in a little bit. But it was good. I thought it was unique to see May. I was happy to see May and Osha's sibling rivalry and growing up, their distinctions between the two kids. And I thought the girls that played young May and young Osha did a fantastic job. And again, the music was just bam. I mean, it was spot on point. It was, everything about it was good. I did enjoy it, the episode, because it really it advanced the narrative. But what I liked about it, it left us with more questions than we had answers, which left me waiting for next Tuesday. So, they've been doing that a lot by making me want to wait till next Thursday. So I don't know. We'll see. So, well, let's go ahead and jump into some talking points here and see what everybody is thinking here. Of course, I think we definitely want to take a look at, of course, we got the witches on this planet. We meet Mother Anisia, excuse me, Anisea, for the first time, which we saw her in some of the promos that came out before. So we finally got to meet her and discovered a little bit about her. We met Mother Coral. We met some of these other witches and learned that basically these kids were the witches' hope. They were the future of this group of witches. And having them involved, and of course we've got witches all through Star Wars now. We got the Dathomir witches there in Clone Wars and in Rebels, and now in Ahsoka they got the witches coming back to Dathomir. I mean, there's a lot going on with the dark side witches here, and they just keep coming out of the woodwork. And so it was unique to see this different coven of witches, which obviously have been on the run from what we see. David, when it came to getting into this episode and finding out we were doing the flashback and meeting these witches, what are your thoughts on this coven of witches and what we see them in investing everything into these two kids?
Well, that brings up kind of this, like what I mentioned in my opening remarks, which is just these really deep issues. Like when I was going to jump to the scene where you see the ascension ceremony going on, and then you see the Jedi just come in the middle of this, and Master Indara is saying, to Mother Anisea, you know that we have a right to test these children. And I'm thinking, because Mother Anisea is like, well, we're on Brendok here, we're not part of the Republic, the Galactic Republic, and it brings up so many fascinating issues to me about, do you tell other people how to raise their kids? Do you have jurisdiction out here? It feels like Mother Anisea is like, yes, you do, but you don't. And so then it brings in, like you said, what are these witches? Is, are they good or bad? And then you get a statement that leads into one of the really deep issues I was mentioning, which is Mother Anastasia says this isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who gets to wield it. And you can see that in that conversation right there between Indara, and Mother Anastasia. And so I'm just watching this, just fascinated by all the dynamics going on here. And, are they doing the right things? Are they evil? Even Mother Anastasia says it before the Ascension ritual. Some considered our stuff like dark magic or something like this, and so on. And we were almost extinct until we found this planet, and so on. But questions that I have, and I don't know what you guys think, but like, should these two kids be there? Are the Jedi better than the witches to raise them? With the hint from Mother Coral to Mother Anastasia saying, the Jedi, what will they do if they find out how these twins were created? You're like, oh, is that good or bad? Sounds like it's the Jedi aren't going to really like this. And so, oh my gosh, there's so much here. I don't know. Those are just a few of some of my thoughts. I want to stop and hear what you guys have to say and see how this leads into, some of the other, talking points that we have. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Jason, go ahead, my friend.
I mean, the whole thing they're building up with the witches is incredibly interesting. From the point of, there's been a lot of work in the storytelling with the Jedi to kind of paint this picture of is what the Jedi doing good or bad, right? So traditionally the Jedi, if you're born in the Republic, you're tested early. A child is given over to the Order willingly, and so they can be raised without attachments and truly not be tempted by the dark side of the Force. But that whole process is different here because the children are older. We've seen plenty of cases where training older children has always become a problem for the Jedi. But the fact that Mother Anastasia is kind of letting her rather young child make this decision for herself, I think is very interesting, right? One mother is very protective and saying you can't do this, and I think, any of us would not let our 8-year-old child make a decision to leave home for the rest of their lives. Granted, Star Wars is a different world that they're building, but going back to the Coven itself, what is interesting about the witches we've seen before is that there's always some other group of people around them. In Dathomir, there was all the Zabraki males that were there that could help them repopulate. And I think that's the interesting thing here, is that they had to find a way to procreate because, what would be considered natural was not available to them for whatever reason. And I think that's an interesting thing here, because that was part of the dialogue, right? They didn't know how to continue on. They found this place where they could be safe and they could practice whatever, methods they were concocting, which I'm sure we will find out at some point I'm hoping so, right? I don't know why they would tease that to us, be like, oh, I hope they don't find out how this happened, and not, give at least some sort of explanation to us. I think we all sort of assume that there is some sort of Force conception that is happening, born from the Force or what have you. But it'll be interesting to see them actually dive into that a little bit further. I hope they do. They've never really they've left us mysteries before, but I don't know.
Yeah.
No, well said. And it actually brings me into something else we wanted to touch on, which of course was the twins and the creation of Osha and May, because we get that, and David, you mentioned it in your initial reactions. We have that whole interaction between Anastasia and Coral. I was going to say Quill, and I knew that wasn't right. But Coral, and where Coral's like, like I carried them, and she's like, I created them, and the side's like, I created them, and they're like, yeah, I know, and don't want a Jedi to find out. So it brings up an interesting dynamic, like Jason said. There obviously there was some kind of forced conception there, is what a lot of people are analyzing and are kind of feeding into it. Obviously, comparing it to Anakin, of course, Anakin being conceived by the Force, whereas we now have these twins also conceived by the obviously dark Force magic. So it's I almost want to say, I almost wonder if they're going to give us a mirror image of what happened there, because with Anakin we don't know how he was created. We just know he was conceived by the Force, strongest Jedi ever, boom, there we go. Then we have these girls who obviously are Force sensitive, created by the dark side and carried by another, not the person that created them. So it's curious to see. I was kind of like some kind of dark side IVF going on here, or
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys read, Charles Soule did a run of Vader comics. Was it 2017? He talks about the Barash vow. That's where it's first mentioned. And of course, we get that mentioned in episode 2 of this series. Charles Soule was very happy about it being mentioned. And the other thing is that Charles Soule kind of got Star Wars fans really fired up. And was he in one of them? It kind of showed Palpatine in his black robes, and you see his evil face, and I think the picture, I got it over here to the left of me here, but it's almost like he has his hands around Padme's, not Padme's, but yeah, Shmi, around her, and like created Anakin, and that got everybody fired up. Oh wait, was it Palpatine? And he's just trying to kind of get people to think about it a little bit, but we don't actually know. But now then I think about episode 3, where you see Palpatine talking to Anakin and saying, there's some things that the Sith do that are considered to be unnatural, by the Jedi. And so I thought about it when Jason mentioned that, like, they're doing something that's not considered natural. They have all women there, and during the ascension, you see Anastasia say, and we created life, and she puts her hands up, and then the crowd of women parts, and that's when we see the 2 girls come up. So it's okay, you've created life here. And I think Leslie Headland is really kind of, she's leaning into the prequels because she knows these things, and she said it even, I think she even talked about it last year at Star Wars Celebration, that she really wanted to lean into what kind of things were going on that would lead to someone like Palpatine. And so you're seeing these hints, and like Jason said, I've always loved when he's podcasted and been on our show before. He's always given us the context and background, but I feel like, that's what Leslie Headland is doing, is using that context from the prequels, and this can really funnel right into it. But it provides for some really interesting conversation, and again, is it unnatural? Is it wrong? Is it right? And I don't know, kind of like Jason said, for whatever reason, it's just what's considered a natural way is not there. There's no women there in the coven, but what is natural? What's unnatural? What's right? What's wrong? And all these hints into the prequels. So a lot of stuff to discuss, and a lot of material to really get us thinking.
Oh, definitely. And I'm going to redirect the question to Jason real quick, because before we take our break, because going down this road, we've seen ever since this episode come out. If you've been online, you've seen a lot of controversy with the forced conception of these twins, and there's been a debate going on about whether or not it cheapens the creation of Anakin by the Force. And I know how you are, Jason, with the facts of the saga and everything. So I wanted just to get your thoughts on that. How you feel about the Immaculate Conception of these twins versus and how it affects the creation of Anakin.
Wow, thanks.
No whammy, stop.
Back to you, David. No,
Well,
I
I know, Jason. Aaron will do that to me sometimes too. He just throws this like a like what we call an emotional grenade. Boom, here you go, Dave. Now cover that up.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the deal, right? So what is happening? From the storytelling of Star Wars, there are filmmakers out there who want to tell Star Wars stories, and there is, at some level, with Dave Filoni as the executive creative director and everything, there's a lot of effort happening right now, and will probably happen over the next 5 years until they can find a place that they feel Star Wars is healthy, can thrive in a storytelling standpoint. There's a lot of effort to give the fans an explanation for the way things are in a very satisfactory way. And to do that, they're going to have to rehash some things. Now, do I think that these witches using the Force to conceive a child cheapens, Anakin's situation? No, because there's been a lot of suggestion that the Emperor himself had something to do with that. And I don't think it's a unique thing that happened at that moment. We're as fans of the original trilogy, there is a lot of care given to protecting that story and that element, but the Skywalker saga is just a small fraction of the galaxy. And perhaps Star Wars has spent too much time trying to offshoot from that particular story instead of telling original ones. And I think, I don't think I'm actually a little surprised the Acolyte's only 100 years before the prequel era, right? It's only 100 years. It's a generation. It's and that's probably intentional. They could have gone way further back, but clearly they wanted to do something in this time that's going to have some ramifications in the time frame that we're all very familiar with from the films. So I would say no, it doesn't cheapen, because at some point, where would Palpatine have learned how to do this, right? Maybe this is where. Maybe this is where that starts. Maybe this is what gets passed on to the Sith. I mean, we still don't know who the mysterious Sith figure is, or a supposed Sith figure is in this show, unless y'all have discussed and decided you have an answer. No. But that's got to be learned. That's got to be taught. And even in episode 2, when they're sending the opera, Palpatine makes the reference that he learned all this stuff from his master. So that person had to, it has to be taught. And so just to tell a different story where this has also happened, no, I do not think it cheapens. Final answer. I rest my case.
Wow. Very
that was good.
Aaron, this is why we have Jason on, right? That is interesting. Because you think Palpatine's master is Plagueis, and then I believe that Darth Tenebris is Plagueis's master, right? So it's just like Jason said, we're really close here. And this, when you said, did Palpatine learn this from maybe this coven of witches, or at least some hints and clues about it, and learned about it that way? That's now we've got the connective tissue and connective dots. Wow. Okay.
Right. I mean, because he said so. He learned it from his master before he killed him. Right. That's the whole point of the Sith, is for the apprentice to take over from the master. But we were exploring a time where there are lots of different ways of using the Force. We saw it in the Rebels. We saw it when we're seeing it here, where it can flourish a little bit more.
Yeah. Well said.
Well said. Well said. This is why I threw that bomb over at Jason there.
Wow, you did
Nothing
much
but
better.
love, brother. Nothing but love.
I've served my time. Thank you. I won't see you next time you ask me on the show.
Well, I know sometimes I'm like, but you nailed it, Jason. That was really good and really connected the dots. So
absolutely. So we're going to take a few moments to convince Jason to come back in the future. So while we're doing that, hang with us. We're going to take a quick break. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here, and we convinced Jason to stick around. So he's still with us here, and we're going to.
My arm hurts a little bit.
You're not supposed to tell him that. Shh. Didn't you learn anything from this episode? Lie to the Jedi. Anywho, we're talking Destiny. So, let's jump into the parenting aspect of this episode, because we have Coral and we have Anastasia parenting these twins, May and Osho. And of course, with the three of us being the father of multiple kids and all of us having daughters, this gave us an interesting look at this episode. And, we see, of course, you initially get the feeling they want what's best for these girls. They're wanting that, but then of course, as you go on, are they wanting what's best for the girls, or are they wanting what's best for the coven? Because they are pinning their hopes of survival for this coven on these two girls. Then of course you have them instructing the girls to purposely throw the test and lie to the Jedi. So there's some, bad mojo going there, but then again, they're also witches. So you kind of like, what do you kind of expect there? But what were your thoughts on the twins and their relationship with their mothers, and how the parenting model is going through this episode? And that's for either one of you or both of you, or one than the other.
We'll throw that to Jason and be like, here's two in a row that are no, I'll do it this time and see what you and Jason think. I in previous series that Aaron and I have covered, like Mandalorian season 1 and 2, Ahsoka, all those, Andor, I've tried to do psychology corners or psychology factoid corners, and in one of them, I believe it was season 2 of Mandalorian, I kind of did the whole theme of parenting, and really kind of using, Din Djarin and talking about what he was doing, kind of right and wrong and stuff like this. But parenting is humble pie. There's no question. Worked with tons and tons of parents over the years. And then of course, we're not trained before we get married to really talk to the person we're going to marry about how were they disciplined, how were you disciplined, do you know how to blend your disciplining styles if you both feel like it worked by your parents. And then of course, Aaron, I've talked about this on the show, and Jason knows this too, because we've all talked about our kids together, is what do you do once you have more than one kid, and all three of us have more than one kid, is now you start to see personality differences. And that's a big thing you see here between May and Osha, is real big personality differences. And we see that immediately at the very beginning when they're kind of using the Force on those beautiful flying they look like underwater sea creatures, but they're flying in the air. But when you have personality differences, I've talked to parents about, okay, you did this, mom and dad, or parents, to raise this boy or girl, but this kid has a different personality, and that parenting style, that discipline style, will not work with this kid. And the parents kind of look at me and go, what? I'm like, no, that'll backfire you. We've got to morph this a bit. So it can be incredibly difficult. The other thing I would say is this, one of the things that I've had to work on with parents is this issue, and maybe both of you have heard this before, is the problem of when a child is born with a job. And what do I mean by that? Let me just quickly lay it out. So, for example, I've worked with parents where, unfortunately, a kid has died, right? It's the most difficult work I've done. I've done it for over 31 years for parents of all ages. And part of what happens, it can happen, it doesn't have to happen, but sometimes you'll see this, and I've seen a boy or girl who's born, there was a sibling that died of you name it, and then they're almost technically, this kid is born with a job, which is not just to be a boy or girl in this family, but you have this job of replacing this sibling versus you are who you are. Unfortunately, that boy or girl died from this genetic disorder, car accident, cancer, you name it. But that's what we call being born with a job, and as both of you have mentioned, like when we see this creation, their job is to keep this coven going. So versus being born and just raising them, it's you have the job of taking this over. Even during the ascension ceremony, Mother Anastasia says, what? Do you promise to lead this coven upon my death? Well, geez, thanks for that job. And like Jason mentioned, they're like 8 years old or whatever they are, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Holy pressure, Batman. So again, just a few of my thoughts. Hopefully that kind of tees it up for both of you and to see what you guys think.
Jason, how about you, brother?
I got nothing.
Well, Jason nailed the last one. That's why we're together on this. I was hoping, I helped you guys out.
I honestly, I also would have accepted ditto.
I mean, I do echo the whole personalities differences, right? So my children are now 3 and 5, and that is such the age where that starts becoming really, really striking. And just this desire for one to have independence while the other one is, wants them to stay, doesn't want the change. And even though I don't have twins, I see that wholeheartedly on daily, right? But there's also constant battles and constant fights and disagreements and arguments. And I think they played that very well. And, even though I know the storytelling apparatus here was to try to paint a picture that one is good and one is evil, even though we're not quite, even though there's lots of hints to think that maybe who we think is good and who we think is evil is a lot less black and white and probably a lot more gray than we want to believe. There's a lot of good that can be said about both, I think.
Nice.
Very good. So very good. Carabas. I got tongue-tied for a second. Anyway, so well said, both of you. It's one of those things where the differences in the kids, and y'all said it great, so I'm not even going to try to expand on it because y'all encapsulated it perfectly. Because I see the differences between mine too. My youngest is 12 and my oldest will be 17 next month. So just the vast difference between the two makes it an adventure, day in and day out. So, yeah. All right. Well, we would be dismiss in our coverage of a Star Wars show if we didn't talk about the Jedi in this story. Of course, we have Indara and Saul and Kalnaka and Padawan Tobin. And I got to be careful. I keep calling him, his name's Tobin, but I know the kid from Game of Thrones, so I keep wanting to call him Tommen because it's so close, and that was his name in Game of Thrones. But we have Tobin, Padawan Tobin, but
I think it's Torben.
Is it Torb? See, I'm even messing that up. There we go.
Yeah.
So Padawan T is just chilling there, hanging around, getting possessed by the mother. But we see a unique difference in this story with the Jedi as they're talking about taking the children, especially taking recruiting Osha and potentially May to be Jedi at the age that they're at. Traditionally through all of Star Wars, through the Clone Wars and everything, we normally see them taking infants, taking infants to the temple and raising them up in the ways of the Jedi. So that pre-established attachment isn't there to their parents. And we see the exact opposite happening here. They're 8 years old and we're trying to test them and take them away to join the order. So I really wanted to get both of y'all's thoughts on this situation, because it definitely is different than what we are used to seeing in Star Wars. I know initially we always thought Anakin was, again, the exception to the rule when it came to Anakin or Obi-Wan taking him as a Padawan after Qui-Gon's death. And we have Saul, we have all of them taking Osha, and then Saul going, "You can be my Padawan," and starting almost an attachment immediately with that embrace at the end of the episode. So what are your thoughts basically on the Jedi recruiting Padawans at this older age? Jason, let's start with you, my brother.
I do find it interesting that they are willing to do it, because there was such a resistance with Luke, there was such a resistance with Anakin, and maybe this is why there was such a resistance. That's actually an interesting thought. Why would they be? They're so willing to do it at this point in time, and that could lead into the whole thought, and I don't know if you all have covered this or not yet, but this is the period of the Jedi that we are in right now is a lot more independent. It seems a lot less rigid than the Jedi we saw in the prequels, and so there was no question: are they going to train this 8-year-old? And even Master Saul was like, "Well, you can be my apprentice." I'm like, there was debates and approvals that had go through for Anakin, who was, I believe, at the same age or young, or potentially younger, when he was trained. So I don't know. I think that's what it's. The more I think about it, the more I speak out loud, the more I think that's what this is all speaking to. Is the Jedi are giving themselves the will of the Force a little bit more. They're doing what they feel is right. They are permitted to do what they feel is right. We're only getting hints of structure, and there was one mention of political rivals, but it wasn't. There's hardly any mention of the Senate at all in this series, which they were tied at the hip to the Senate in the prequel trilogy. So I think more than anything, that's probably what this speaks to.
Very good, very good. And you hit the nail on the head, which was exactly what I was looking for. Is maybe this recruitment of May and of Osha is what leads to the resistance in Anakin. That's kind of what I was kind of angling for through this conversation. David, how about you, brother? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I'm glad Jason said that, because I think I can back it up with a lot of data here, and it's kind of what I wrote to myself here, is that here's this situation. It goes really badly for the Jedi when they want to take Osha and May to train in the Jedi Temple. And something I wrote down here was not one person, not two people, a lot of people died in that temple. All of them, including both parents. Oh my God, good Lord. Both parents die. You see all those people on the ground. You see Soul. He's, I guess, Jedi Knight Soul at this point. I read the episode guide before I jumped on with you guys. He's trying to get her out of there. Stop at one point. She sees her mother, well, at least one, Anna Say, on the ground dead. Oh my goodness. And then, as the three of us know, and everybody watching this series, we now have Jedi being killed. We've had Master Andara and then Master Torben. I mean, this is, I even wrote the word, this is horrific. I mean, you think about this, even when you saw May handing the poison from that tree, right, the Bunta tree, to Master Torben, you hear him very quietly say, "We thought we were doing the right thing. I'm so sorry," And I mean, this is a disaster at unprecedented levels, and so you wonder, like Jason said that, and like I think about Yoda and the Jedi Council when you see Mace Windu testing Anakin, and then ultimately saying he's too old. You do wonder if they're thinking back to this. I mean, this is really, really bad, and so I don't know. I thought about something Jason mentioned earlier, and again, all three of us have daughters. Would the three of us as dads, would our wives allow our daughters to make a decision like this? Absolutely not. No way. And I know this as from I'll do it, not just from a parenting, but a clinical psychologist. I've talked about it many times. They do not have a fully developed brain, prefrontal cortex, to look at everything. Even Mother Anastasia hints at that. What we want changes, OSHA, over time. Well, that's because the prefrontal cortex has to finish developing. But no, you can't let the kids do this. And as parents, I've been thinking about this whole situation. Would any of us allow our kids to be taken from us by the Jedi, by a coven, by any of these groups of people? It just is very bizarre if you look at it from Earth worldview versus maybe that galaxy far, far away.
Well said. Well said. So we, of course, definitely, like I said, there's a lot to unpack from this episode because there's a lot in here, and there's so much more that we could be talking about. I know David mentioned the free will versus determinism in his opening remarks and everything, but there is one thing I do want to hit on before we run out of time, and that is, of course, what's missing from the story we just saw. Because there's one thing that stuck out to me, and I don't know if y'all noticed it. Of course, we see Padawan Torben at the beginning of the episode. He's young, he's healthy, he's unscarred. And of course, if you remember him from episode 2, when we see him hovering there in his trance, he's got that scar on his face, over his eye. And in this episode, we see him young, healthy, strong Padawan, no scar. But at the end of the episode, and I don't know if it was just me seeing things or if there's something, but I could have swore when we glimpse Torben and Nara standing in the background when Saul is talking to Osha after she woke up on the ship, he's got that scar over his eye. So what happened?
Yeah.
Because when they're leaving the temple, when Saul's leaving the temple with Osha, the commune with Osha, everybody's dead, but they didn't burn up in a fire.
True.
They were just dead. So what happened?
I think that's going to be more flashback. And I'll say this to both of you. If you remember, in the first episode, May goes into that cantina bar, looks at Master Andara and says, "Attack me." And Andara says, Jedi don't attack people who are unarmed. And what is May's response? "Oh, yes, you do." Mm-hmm. And that was a critical line that she says, which conveys, whoa, did Andara or somebody else really do something really bad. And so you bring up a good point. All those people that are dead inside the temple, it's almost like, how did they die? And you wonder, oh man, this could get really, man, this get dark fast. Like, what did Torben do? What did Kelnaka do? Was it just Torben? Souls trying to save both girls. Where's Indara? So this, like we said before, this is a murder mystery in terms of who killed Indara and Torben. It's a mystery as to what they did, or what some of them did in this whole coven situation. So I'm fascinated.
It's another version of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, before we go start to wrap things up, was there anything either of you wanted to touch on about this episode before we close out?
Jason, any other little contextual things? Or
I mean, I'm just excited for the mystery, right? They're certainly still hiding things from us. What actually happened here, to y'all's point, is really speaks to probably the center of the mystery that's going on. Mm-hmm. Why does May want to go around and kill these 4 Jedi? What actually happened? Was either of the mothers involved? I don't know. I was trying to actually look while you guys were talking. I don't know if Coral's body was in that pile. And she's definitely, she was also against the whole thing. So I can also envision a path where, she started this. Maybe the Jedi got involved with her. I don't know. But I don't want to speculate. But I'm glad they are layering in more elements of the Force in live action. We were very blessed, I think, in Rebels to see a lot of different sides of the Force, from the way the witches used it, the way that the species is eluding me, but Zeb Orrelios, his people, the way they used it.
Lasat.
Bill Lasat, yes, thank you. And then now, we're seeing it in a live action form, which is great. To really, we've always needed more depth to the Force, and the good thing from the kind of mass populace standpoint is they may not see it in comics or read it in books, but they will see it on the screen, and it is nice to be able to see that lore fleshed out a little bit more.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Well said. It has been good, especially with the perspective we're seeing about the Force from the witches, with it being a thread that nobody controls, and you just want to leave. You don't want to pull the thread, or things just fall apart. So it was very unique use of the Force in this, and I like how you said that, Jason, because we are learning more and more about the Force with every single one of these shows that come out, and I love it. So, all right, well, we are going to go ahead and take one final break. When we come back, we'll do our final reactions. David will share his factoid, and we will wrap things up with, of course, the dad joke of the week. So hang around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron, David, and Jason together again, and we are wrapping up our discussion on Destiny, the 3rd episode of The Acolyte. So let's just go into our final reactions about the episode. Jason, why don't you kick us off with your final thoughts and final reactions to Destiny?
I am excited about where the show is going. I am very pleased in the exploration of the various elements of the Force, the exploration of the children learning the Force, the way the Jedi were to see the Jedi in a different time period, when they were more independent and more gave themselves more over to the Force, a lot more of the Qui-Gon Jinn philosophy than more of the dogmatic stuff that we saw in the prequels. And lastly, I mean, just the aesthetics of the show are incredible. The way the shots are done, the way it harkens back to the film, and the way George Lucas made them. Some great nods to some of the amazing stuff that was done in Rogue One and in the other Disney Plus shows, especially the ones I hate to say it, but especially the ones that Dave Filoni did not do. There's a lot of this this old school Star Wars that they're really trying to bring out, and I think they've captured it well without. In this case, they've captured it well without making it feel like they are just serving the fans.
Very good. Very good. David, how about you, brother?
Yeah, as I said in my initial reactions and as all three of us discussed in the talking points, there's just unequivocally an interesting and thought-provoking episode. Like Aaron said, just because of time constraints, I could talk for an hour on free will versus determinism and how it was discussed with Mother Anastasia and the two girls, and how the Jedi perhaps see it or not, and so on. Also, the very light subject of power and who gets to use it. Mother Anastasia mentions that as well. We could have talked, all three of us, about that, but it just, there's so much, and that's great because, and Jason said this, and I wrote this, in our notes. I think he must have had some ESP about what I was writing, but I put down the movies and other series have introduced deep subjects, interesting and deep subjects, and this series is following suit, and I just really like it. It's these first three episodes, it's incredible. I watched the first two episodes 3 times each. I've watched this twice. I'll definitely watch it a third time. I can't say that I did that for each episode of Ahsoka, and so that's a really good sign to me. What am I pulled back to watch multiple times? But I'm like Jason, like you, Aaron. I am so pleased with this. I love where it's going. I can't wait to see the next episode. I heard Leslie Headland make a comment about episode 5. I know with Ahsoka, I think Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy and the crew, they put episode 5 of Ahsoka in theaters. Remember that last year? And but I think she's hinted, or not even hinted, but said that it's going to be pretty crazy. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's the 5th episode, and let's see what happens in 6, 7, 8. So I've loved it so far. Not liked. I've loved it, and I'm like Aaron. You said it, buddy. I'm ready for next Tuesday.
Exactly. So am I. I am ready for next Tuesday as well, and it is going to be a great week. I got a feeling that it's going to be fun. For me, final reactions, it was a good episode. I really enjoyed the character building, the background story we're getting, the story of the Force that we're seeing being told. It was a little slow. I'll give you that, compared to last week's with the action that was going on throughout both episodes. This one was a little bit more paced, a little bit slower, but it's how it needed to be done. It was good. It was slow, but in a good way. I really enjoy it when they give us a story that leaves me scratching my head going, okay, I get what you're saying, but what about this, and what aren't you telling me about this? You're leaving me with more questions than you gave me answers, which is a very Filoni thing to do. So kudos, Leslie. You learned a good trick from a good guy. But this was great. I enjoyed it, and it's there. David and I had a discussion last night with our friend Greg McLaughlin. This is there are going to be people that love this show. There's going to be people that hate the show. It's okay either way. As long as those who are like the show are enjoying it, great. If you don't like it, I'm sorry you don't like it, but that's fine. There's other Star Wars out there for you to enjoy. It doesn't make it right or wrong. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It is good. So here we go. Can't wait till next week. So, of course, we want to hear from you and find out what y'all thought of the Destiny and of the Acolyte so far. Of course, all of our socials are open, Facebook and X at SW Reactions Pod. You can hit us up on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky, Tumblr, all at SW Reactions. Of course, our Pinterest as well. You can also email us, swreactions@gmail.com, or feel free to leave us a voicemail at Star Wars Reactions, or excuse me, speakpipe.com/Star Wars Reactions. Caramast. Yeah. And of course, if you want to reach out to me solo, you can always hit me up online at TA Harris 121079 over on the X. And I jumped ahead and should have done that later in the show, but it's okay. David, let's give it to you and let you do your factoid.
Yeah, I almost changed my factoid to talking a little bit about the parenting and the personality, but I felt like we kind of did a mini psychology corner in the middle of the episode. So I'm going to stay with the factoid I have in here. In this factoid, we learn, and keep in mind, last month, May, was Mental Health Awareness Month. June is, well, every month has multiple, names to it, right? June is actually Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I thought, you know what, let's stay with this one. So at this factoid, we learned that suicide spikes in the first few days after discharge for being hospitalized for depression. In JAMA, JAMA is a very well-respected Journal of the American Medical Association. This is specifically their psychiatry journal. These researchers, they looked at 193,000 records for close to almost, about 91,000 patients who were hospitalized for depression in Finland. And this was from 1996 to 2017. So this is a massive study. And they found a suicide incidence of about 6,062 per 100,000 person years in the first 3 days after discharge. That suicide incidence, the incidence stayed high, but fell to about 3,884 per 100,000 person years in days 4 to 7 after discharge. And something that the researchers noted is that it's important to consider that several risk factors were associated with suicide incidents after discharge. And those include age, having a male sex. We know that males are more successful at suicide than females because they usually use more drastic measures. And then other clinical risk factors, such as what is the severity of the depressive episode? There's mild, moderate, severe levels of depression. It also looked at other risk factors like high illness severity. I do have a number of clients right now who have a number of physical health illness issues. And all of those things have to be put into account. And these researchers mentioned that when you look at these different factors, each one indicated a 2-fold to 5-fold higher relative risk factor. And so those are important things to keep in mind, at this time of year when we're thinking about mental health awareness and men's mental health awareness here this month. So I'll have more psychology factoids coming up. In fact, I've got I hinted last week, Aaron, I've got a 4-part psychology factoid process talking about the use of psychedelics in the treatment of treatment-resistant depression and anxiety. And I'm really excited to share that with our listeners. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up.
Very good. Very good. And of course, David, if somebody wants to talk Star Wars with you or about the psychology factoid, how would they go about doing that?
Absolutely. Same as always. Twitter X. I'm at David_Modders, Modders. I'm on Instagram. You just look for my name, David Modders. And like Aaron mentioned, Blue Sky and all that stuff. And again, if you contacted any of our Star Wars Reactions socials, Aaron gets those. He's all over those, and he would pass it on to me as well.
Exactly. I definitely will. So, and of course, Jason, my brother, anything you want to share before we close everything out tonight?
Yeah, there's no way you can contact me, so don't even try. I've gone in recluse since my children were born. But however, on the side, I do have a very small trading card business. So if you are into Star Wars collectible cards, especially tops from the 90s or the original Star Wars CCG or Star Wars Destiny, and a number of other non-sports related cards, you can go to thechancecube.com. You'll hit my eBay store. You can also contact me through there because I will likely respond to that.
There you go. Perfect. Well, that brings us to the end, and you know what that means. You know what the time that is, David, don't you?
I do. I don't know that we should subject Jason to this, but he's here with me. I always feel better when I have somebody on so that it's not just me dealing with the brunt of these groaner Star Wars dad jokes.
Oh, they're Star Wars themed? I'm not.
Oh.
I'm getting ready to sign off, guys.
Of course they are Star Wars themed dad jokes. Yes. Always got to end this show with one, and I got one right here for you. So, gentlemen, if you're ready, here we go. What do you call it when Maul's cybernetic legs stop working?
Ooh. Well, what do you call it when Maul's cybernetic legs stop working?
It's a malfunction.
Oh my god!
A malfunction.
That's awful.
That's exactly. Jason, that's awful. That's I feel every week, Jason.
Oh my!
That's the best reaction I think we've ever had.
That is awful.
I'm over here sitting like he had spider legs at one point, like he was cut in half. I'm like, it's just a stupid pun. Oh my lord.
Oh,
I can't.
I'm dealing with this every week, buddy. Oh, this is his big thing. There's an episode, Jason, just and we can kind of mention this to people, but back in April we interviewed Kelly Knox, who wrote the Star Wars Dad Jokes book, and I'm looking at it over here on my bookshelf, and she was great. And we read a bunch of the jokes. They're just puns, they're plays on words. Oh my gosh, Jason, Aaron was in his glory. Can I just say that?
Right.
So, yeah. I would encourage you to go back and listen to that interview.
I bet the dad jokes really make your retention rate go up, don't they?
we feel like we lose listeners every time, Jason.
But most of our feedback is on dad jokes.
It is actually. It is.
Well, it's doing something for you.
It's doing something. So.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it has been a blast. Jason, my friend, it is always great to talk with you. You are welcome back anytime you just want to talk some Star Wars. We would love to have you back on whenever you have free time. And of course, David, it's a blast as always.
Absolutely. So good to be on with you. And like we said, Jason, we're so thankful you were on. And it was a great time and a great episode to cover. Absolutely. To remember. And of course, thank you everybody for listening. Y'all are the best. We love y'all. We're praying for y'all, wishing y'all the best. Remember, do something kind for somebody this week. It'll rock their world and change yours while it's happening. So remember, this is your place for elegant discussion for a more civilized age.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions, unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions, elegant discussion for a more civilized age.